How's everyone doing? Energized? For the first row, good night. I'll see you in a bit. So, as Russell was saying, this talk probably will be a little controversial. So it's great if it's after lunch so you can go to sleep and avoid the controversy. But it will contradict some of the things that you've already heard in the conference, and I think that's totally okay. That is actually how innovation and new ideas come to fruition. So let's get started. Russell was talking a bit about Riot Games. So who's heard of Riot Games before this? Okay, great. So just to give you a little bit about who we are, if you haven't heard of us, we really care about our players, people, and culture. We were voted number 13 on the Fortune's 100 companies to work for, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, just an hour and a half ago, one of my colleagues called me and said that we won, I guess, the 2016 Company of the Year award. So I just found this out, and I'm going to show you the video on the website. So this article just came out today, if I can find my mouse. And it came out with a pretty nice video that I want to show you that helps me introduce who we are. So yeah, I'm very grateful to be part of Riot Games. And this is, sorry, the tech. Yeah, so why are we Company of the Year? I'm not really sure. The article goes into a lot of details around that. But one thing I know is that our mission is core to us. We aspire to be the most player-focused game company in the world. You can wake up any Rioter in the middle of the night and ask them, what's our mission? And they'll say, we aspire to be the most player-focused game company in the you know? And it's really ingrained into everyday language, into every decision we make. It's all about the player, right? So we are a product-driven company. We're around 2,500 people across the world, 15 offices. And this, by the way, technically we're Riot Game, not games. We only have one game, and it's League of Legends. If you've never heard of League of Legends, it's called a MOBA. It's a multiplayer online battle arena. The idea is that there's 5 players against 5 players, and there's a battle arena. If you want to try to imagine it, think of basketball, but with 3 balls in the court. That's sort of the dynamic of the game. So yeah, we have 100 million monthly active players, and we do a lot of different kind of things. And so this intro, before we talk about leadership, this intro, I need to give you the context that I'll tell you the story in. And so obviously we do game development. So we do a lot of game development. But it doesn't stop there. We listen to our players. We listen to what will delight them, what are they not expecting, what would actually really engage them in the context of the game. And so we got into cinematics.
R1.
We also got into music. We found that people want to listen to League of Legends music, so we started building albums. The other thing we got into was we found that the latency and ping for our players was actually not acceptable for the experience we want them to have. So we started building our own network. We're the first game company in the world to build its own network to connect players directly to the game servers to decrease latency. So just to add, we started comics. And one of the big things that we really are pushing the envelope in is what's called esports. Who's heard of esports? Oh, excellent. So esports is esports. That's exactly what it says. Think of the game more of a sport. There's competition, there are leagues, there's a World Cup, et cetera, et cetera. Here's a clip from the 2014 finals.
The Nexus itself and Samsung White are the 2014 World Champions.
What a sight.
So this was in the same stadium in Korea that they had the World Cup finals in, and we sold out in a matter of 5 minutes. 40,000 or 50,000 spectators. So all this to say that we do a lot of different kinds of work. And we're an Agile organization. We're Agile at the core. But the way you develop game features is substantially different than the way you build the cinematics. Very different. You don't have a second iteration, right, at when you release a music album, right? Or you do have a fixed date when we're talking about an esports event, right? So very, very different types of work in the organization, but we are all focused on Agile. And it's at the core. You talk to anyone, every person coming into the company goes through a week of orientation. Of that week, 2 days is just Agile fundamentals. Doesn't matter where they work, right? But they will learn what we mean when we say Agile. And here's our definition of Agile. Agile is a mindset. And I think you've heard that time and time and time again. But if you haven't, here's one more time. Right? Agile is a mindset that is described by 4 values coming from the Agile Manifesto, defined by 12 principles. And here's the key. It's manifested through an unlimited number of practices. And we actually have to end up inventing different kind of practices to make that mindset work in areas it usually doesn't work in. Right? So when we look at different methodologies or frameworks or processes, whatever you want to call them, like Scrum or XP or even our homegrown methodology, all of those are simply bundles of practices bundled together. That's all they are. And we really don't care about that. What we care about is this. We care about people being Agile, not doing anything, like not doing a specific process or doing a specific methodology. What we care about is the mindset in action. And a lot of people approach Agile from the right side to the left. They start with the practices. They start with the stand-ups and the iterations, et cetera, et cetera. We really start here with the being. And the important part of that is the journey that we take people on as they come on board at Riot. So who's familiar with Shuhari? Oh, great, great. So very quickly, because this is not even the core of what I want to talk about, this is all the setup. Shuhari is a sort of a learning progression, if you may. Think of this. If you've never cooked lasagna before, ever, right? And you, for some reason, decide you want to cook lasagna tonight. You're not just going to open the fridge and say, I think I got this, right? You're going to go online, find a recipe, and if you've never cooked lasagna before, you're going to follow that recipe. And for you, success is just getting to done. That's what we call shoe. So if you're in shoe level, you're following a recipe, you're following a set of rules, and you hope that whatever comes out will look and taste like lasagna. Then let's say that you do this more often, and you start to understand that there are variations of these recipes, and you start to get a little more confident that, you know what, okay, if I don't have this one ingredient, it will still be lasagna, right? And that's what we call high. You start to break the rule, you know the variations, and you can adapt between them. And then we reach re. Re is mastery. Re is when you're not really looking at any recipe. You open the fridge and you're like, lasagna it is, right? And you start cooking, and you may even innovate. You may change something up, and people come ask you for the recipe, right? So that's shu ha ri. The reason I bring this up is what you saw, the different kinds of work that we do, we have I would probably say no two teams work exactly alike. There is no standardized process at Riot, right? We actually encourage teams to reach that re-level as quickly as possible, right? So here, try something out, we'll try it together, break the rule, learn quickly, right? And try to create something that works for you. And so we want teams to reach this re-level. The other thing I want to mention is what I'm about to present in how we look at Agile leadership is our re-level understanding of this. Meaning that what I'm about to present may not apply to you. It applies to us. So take from it what you can, right? But keep in mind that, again, we've gone through a journey of learning, and I'm sharing with you our recipe for lasagna, all right? It may be the best for you, it may not be. So let's get started. Leadership. As I was preparing this presentation, I wanted to put a slide, and it's like the definition of leadership. Have you ever tried to Google the definition of leadership? I would ask you to do it on your phones right now. It's like, oh my God, there are no two definitions alike. Actually, the first couple of results is like 42 different definitions of leadership. It's like, great. Which one do I start? And I actually started reading, I'm like, I'm done. And so it's very interesting. There's so many different, and they are very different, definitions of leadership. Some of them read more like slogans. Some of them are like really long paragraphs. Some of them, it's like empowerment. I was like, what the hell is that? Right? And so there's this topic of leadership is really broad. Now, when we look at the Agile space, it gets a bit more interesting because here's my observation. Now, part of the introduction I didn't tell you is I've been an Agile consultant and coach for pretty large companies for the past 10 years, and only for the past 2 years have I joined Riot Games in a full-time capacity. So I have some different perspectives, and actually some of my opinions have changed when I became back into an organization and actually responsible for being a leader and delivering stuff. So I'm going to share some of that with you. Now, we've all experienced, well, I'm assuming, we've all experienced some bad leadership in our lives. Who's had a bad leader at some point? All right, great. And what I want to make sure as we start the discussion is that we do not confuse good leadership and bad leadership with Agile leadership and non-Agile leadership. These are two different things. Actually, my hypothesis is I don't really know if there is a field of Agile leadership or not. I think what we're looking for is just a lot of good leadership. Because when you have really good leadership, it actually totally fits in our Agile environments. So I don't know, I don't want us to go out and reinvent a whole discipline just to avoid bad leadership and give it a new name, right? So the idea here is I'm going to sort of dissect my understanding of leadership into certain principles that I feel are very, very important so we don't lose sight of what leadership is. As I do that, I want you to think of typical Agile roles that are usually viewed as leaders. The first is our product owner. Second, Agile coach, Scrum Master, and for now we're going to call them the Agile project manager, right? There may be others, but usually these are typical roles that are viewed inside of an Agile organization as leadership roles. Do you guys agree? Okay. So keep these in mind as we go through this discussion. Number one, leaders are accountable. Leaders are accountable. Let me explain. The definition, or the difference, between responsibility and accountability is actually really crucial to this understanding. Number one, responsibility is a feeling an individual has, right? It's a feeling that you have that makes you do whatever it takes to get the job done. When you have a sense of responsibility, you will do whatever it takes with total ownership, right? No blame, no excuses to get the job done. That's an internal feeling. That's responsibility. Accountability is something external. So accountability is to hold someone to account and question their fulfillment of those responsibilities. All right? And there are consequences. If there are no consequences, then I would call it more follow-up than accountability. All right? Checking in on someone and say, hey, you were supposed to do this. Did you do it? That's not accountability for me. Accountability is, hey, you were supposed to do this. What happened? Oh, it went well, blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. Any impact, any this? Or it didn't go well. All right, let's have a conversation. Now, we automatically associate accountability when things go wrong to blame. And that doesn't have to be true, right? Accountability is the act of holding someone to account. Now, what the discussion you're going to have with them is really up to you, right? You can have a discussion of blame. I think you're not a great leader if you do that, right? Or you can have a discussion of learning. All right, so this went bad. What did we learn? What was our hypothesis? Why didn't we do these tests before? What happened? I want to help you grow and make sure that we don't do these mistakes over and over again. And if we start doing them, yes, there may be consequences, and that's okay. So the concept that sort of is related to that is the difference between ownership and leadership. So the analogy I have, without going into too much politics because I'm American and it hurts, is as citizens, we own the country. Yet, we have leaders that we hold accountable. So these two concepts are not mutually exclusive. Now, the reason I believe this is super important is as an Agile culture, as an Agile organization, we want every team member to have a sense of ownership to the work. If we look at pre-Agile, people didn't have a sense of ownership. People had task-oriented feelings, right? So I get a task, I do it, I'm done. Thank you very much. But what we want in an Agile team is every person on the team to feel a sense of ownership of what? Of the product, of delivery, of quality. Everyone needs to have that, what I call collective responsibility. That is critical. But that is not the same as having someone lead the product, having someone lead delivery. There's a difference. At Riot, we really believe in single accountability. Single accountability. Now, 3 years ago, I wouldn't be saying this. 3 years ago, I walked into organizations and was talking about the team is accountable. And I pushed a lot of executives to go with that mentality. And I'll be honest, it was easy for me to do it as a consultant. No skin in the game. I went into Riot with that mentality, right? But again, it wasn't till things went wrong and I had to hold people accountable. That like, am I going to pull in 30 people and have a conversation with them? Who's the leader here? And I want to have a conversation with them. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is there's multiple research out there that links strong accountability mechanisms to high-performing teams. Right? So if you have strong positive accountability mechanisms, again, try to reprogram. That word accountability doesn't mean pointing a finger and blame. It means having a conversation. And in some cases, consequences. That's okay. Right? But the thing that we really want to ensure is that the team can hold the leader accountable and that the leader is held accountable from external. That two-way accountability is critical. Now, you've heard multiple times in the conference that the concept of single wringable neck is not a good concept. And that may be valid. I have a different experience. In our company, we have single wringable necks. We have someone who is the leader that we go and talk to. Now, we talk about good leaders and bad leaders. We want and we invest a lot in having great leaders in the organization. Leaders that empower. But at the end of the day, there are single points of accountability. Next concept is leaders make decisions. And what I want to differentiate here is, as a leader, if I am a leader, if you tell me that I'm a leader, right, then I should have the space and authority to make a decision on, number one, how I want to make the decision. This decision, I want it to be consensus driven. So we're gonna sit down, we're gonna talk, I want to hear everyone's opinion. But if we do not reach consensus, do I have the authority to make a call and close the topic? If I don't believe you're a leader. You may disagree with me, totally respectful here, right? But if I have to escalate, if all I'm given as an equal team member is the responsibility of running some process and rituals with you to gather your opinions, and if you can't come to a conclusion, then I have to go to someone else and say, hey, they didn't come to a conclusion, what's the decision? I don't believe you're a leader. You could be a great facilitator, but you're not a leader. Leaders make decisions. Third, leaders are followed. If you're leading and you look behind and there's no one there, not sure how you call yourself a leader. Now, here's the caveat. This is the hard part. They follow regardless of style and stance. Let me explain this. So in 2000, I believe 2000, Daniel Goleman came up with this HBR article that talked about different leadership styles and stances. And through his research, basically he said, there are 6 different styles or stances of leaders. And the best leaders, the leaders that are most successful, are the ones that can change the stance depending on the situation. You may know this as situational leadership. You may know the 4 quadrants: selling, delegating, telling, so forth. Whatever it is, same concept. All right? But the most important thing here is the ability to change the stance depending on the situation at hand, even if it's uncomfortable. Some of these stances are totally unnatural for people. And the best leaders are those who can grow themselves beyond their comfort zone and be in the stance that the team needs them to be. Here are the 6 stances. Number 1, the visionary leader. Those who lead by setting an inspiring vision and then totally leaving it up to the team on how to get there. The pace-setting leader. Those are leaders that model desired behavior and expect people to follow what they model. The affiliative leader. These are leaders that build teams, build relationships and bonds, and if we can build the team will figure it out. The democratic leader gains or leads through creating participation and consensus, making sure that every voice is heard. The coaching leader focuses on individuals, growing them, taking them to the next limit, pushing them harder. And the commanding leader gives commands and expects compliance. 6 different stances. Think about yourself. What's your default stance? And how many times have you changed your stance? Because keep in mind, again, I believe bad leaders are those who are one, and that's it. That's my comfort zone. I'm good at being democratic, and I'm done. Now, remember what I said. Leaders are followed regardless of the stance. So here's the test. I could be a democratic leader. If I switch to be a commanding leader, does my team say, wait, stop? No. I don't take orders from you. You just help us gain consensus. Right? This actually happened to me. This is my team. My default stance is probably, I would describe as affiliative and democratic with a little bit of visionary on top. All right? That's my usual stance. And that's what people are used to from me. And one day, my boss, who's the CEO, asked me for something. And the only way I could execute within the constraints that I had was to take more of a commanding stance. And honestly, I didn't think twice about it. I fired out an email asking people to do things in a very tight time frame, right? And I commute an hour to work. I did that right before I got in the car, and I drove to work, all right? Now, you don't text or read email while you drive, okay? You shouldn't. And that day I didn't, LA traffic. By the time I got to the office, it was interesting. I opened the Slack channel, and there was like, whoo, like just, like, what's up, what's happening, right? And some of the most interesting responses were, wait, what is the context of this request? And someone else responding and say, he said do it, just do it. All right? And another response is like, okay, we'll get context later. By the time I reached the office, my request had been implemented globally. All right? That is the day that I really felt that, yes, I can switch stance to commanding, even though that's not my comfort zone, that's not what I'm used to do, and my team will still follow. That's what I mean by leaders are followed regardless of their stance. Clear? All right. Now let's start the topic. I like to warm up. All right. So let's go back to our typical leadership roles. Now, start channeling what I just talked about. Leaders are accountable. Leaders make decisions. Leaders have followers, regardless of stance. Let's look at the world pre-Agile for a minute. So this is the world pre-Agile. We had the business on one side. I hate that term, but I can't find anything else. And then we had our tech group. And then who was in the middle? Anyone of you in the middle? Like in the old days, program managers, project managers, any managers? Okay, yeah. You remember those days. How did work get done? Here's how work got done. We got a project or program manager. We allocated team members to them, and he's like, good luck. All right, we hope you best. But accountability was clearly understood. Whose neck was on the line? Who? the project manager, right? Everyone knew that. Were they followed? Again, you can have grudges. Remember, like my team member's like, I'm gonna get context later. And by the way, they came back as like, I did it, what's the context? That's fine, right? And can they make decisions? Now, let's fast forward to Agile. So with Agile, we said, okay, forget those silos. We're going to create a team. Brilliant idea. We're going to create a team. Shared purpose, right? A team, a group of people that have ownership, right? In this model, there was no ownership. There was what? Task assignment. I talked to my manager. What do I need to do next? Thank you. Done, right? But here, we had ownership. We had a team that had a shared purpose and ownership. Great. And we put a Scrum Master there. I'm just going to call him a Scrum Master, right? Whether you implement Scrum or not, we put a Scrum Master still. Then we had the product owner. We had someone from the business, ideally from the business, come and be part of the team or not. I don't want to go into that debate now, so you pick if they're part of the team or not part of the team or standing beside the team. Totally up to your implementation. But we have a product owner, a Scrum Master, and we started working. Now, here's my question. Who is leading this team? Who's leading the team? Is the product owner leading the team? Who is accountable for the work of this team? Typical answer, book answer, is the team, right? I don't know what the hell that means. I need a single point of accountability. Who is leading this team? Who? Who can make decisions? You can tell me, yes, well, the product, why didn't anyone say the product owner? Is everyone asleep or what are you guys out there doing? Like the product owner, a lot of people would say, yeah, the product owner. Are they? Go and read online, just search product owner single wringable neck. Right? Search that and look at how many articles from very, very respectful people, love them, learned a lot from them, but they would say the product owner is not the single wringable neck. They wouldn't say that. They would say the product owner is responsible for prioritizing the backlog. They are responsible for making sure that we are working on the right stuff. But are they responsible that we hit the deadline or not? Okay. So who is the Scrum Master? Can the Scrum Master change stances and be followed? Does the Scrum Master have decision authority? A lot of teams actually rotate Scrum Master. True? Keep that in mind. Now, you guys didn't remind me of this guy. Remember this guy? I mean, they're still in the company somewhere. Right? So I don't know about you, but we like put them around the team. Like, I'm sorry, Agile said no project managers, so just stand over here. But you're still accountable. All right? All right, what's my role on the team? You pick. It's up to you. Can I be the Scrum Master? Oh, yeah. As soon as they step into the Scrum Master role, I was like, go get us pizza, right? Or change this or change that. Well, okay, that role doesn't have really authority. All right, I'm going to be the product owner. Well, can I be both the Scrum Master and the product? Do you see where the confusion comes? So here's what we do. We get this. We put the Agile coach in the middle, too. Now, we have a beautiful mess. Who the hell is accountable for this team? I don't know. I genuinely do not know. And I'm not being aggressive to any model out there or any role, but I had to live through this. And who do I call? Ghostbusters, I don't know. Really, okay, so here's what we did. Again, remember, re-level. We are all about experimentation at Riot. We have no problem challenging convention. It's in our DNA. So here's what we did. We started from scratch. We nuked all the roles. And we said, okay, simple concept. Leader, team, great. Yeah, but we don't like that. So here's what we did. We changed the leadership role, or the leader, into leadership roles. And we treated them like hats. All right? And we defined 4 main hats. The first hat is what we called the team captain. This is the role that leads. The key word here is leads. No one freaking owns anything except the entire team. The team owns. But who leads? We have a role that leads the overall effort. We have a role that leads resonance. What we build has to resonate with our audience. We have to be building the right thing. Agree? So there's a role for that. Another role that leads delivery. We got to ship stuff. And then we have multiple what we call craft leads. These are your tech lead, your UX lead, your testing lead. We call them publishing. Like whatever leads other crafts that need to be part of this endeavor, put them there. Cool? You guys with me? All right. These are hats. So we can have one individual with a hat on, or quite common, we have individuals with multiple hats on. Does that make sense? Different variations, totally up to you. Here's how the accountability structure looks. Team captain. Whoever has that hat on is held externally accountable for the effort of the entire team. Clear? The team captain holds other leads accountable. The leadership team holds the team accountable. The team holds the leadership team accountable. The leadership team holds the leader accountable. It's bi-directional, always. It's a big fest of accountability. All right? Now, this all sounds good. Here's the problem. Putting on a hat doesn't make you immediately capable of executing the role. I wish. It's like, team captain, ta-da! I am all agile now. It doesn't happen like that. Actually, we believe in what we call individual snowflakes. Every person is unique. By trying to fit people to a role, you may not be using their full potential. Right? So what did we do? Like, that's a problem. Here's what we did. It was a bit bold, but we decoupled roles and responsibilities. Typically, common sense, if you have a role, you have a set of responsibilities with it, yes? Yes, no? Hello? Okay, come on, it's after lunch, work with me. And you had to bring ice cream, Edwin and Vicky, right? Ice cream, sugar. All right, so we decoupled roles and responsibilities. Here's what we did. We actually came up with 35 different leadership responsibilities that teams probably have to do. All right, 35 of them. And we anchored only 10 of them. Meaning, of all the responsibilities we have, we only anchored 10. We said, for example, accountable for having and leading with the right vision is the team captain, period. All right? Now, who creates, prioritizes, and maintains the product backlog? I don't care. I actually do not care. All right? So, of all the responsibilities, we only anchored 10, which are these 10. All right? And then the rest, I'll come back. Okay, you know what? Go for it. We left the rest up to the team. So here's what happens. This is literally what happens. We have these beautifully crafted Ziploc bags that have basically the hats and a set of cards for the responsibilities. When a team starts, part of the startup activity of any team is to take this kit and sit down together. And we're going to say, all right, guys, so, and they read whatever it is, and they say, okay, which hat will take this one? And it's like, we believe this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So they lay them out. We haven't talked about who's doing what yet. Just laid them out. Why? That's a good question. Because the understanding of that team may be totally, like, I don't want to go in and waste time debating, does this card go to this role or that role? I don't care. I genuinely don't care. Right? So they go through the first pass, and then they say, okay, based on these roles for this hat, what are the capabilities we're looking for in this person? And they actually start having discussions. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Now, all right, who are we going to have fill this role? And many times, they look at each other as like, yeah, we don't have anyone. We don't have anyone. None of us are capable of fulfilling this role. And that's a great, honest conversation to have. And they actually go out and recruit people, either from inside the company, which we call poaching, or from outside, which is a long process. But anyway. Or they start to, more importantly, say, you know what? I'll take the delivery lead hat, but guys, I'm really bad at this thing. And someone else who has the product lead hat on can say, you know what? I'm actually really good at risk management, so I'll take it. Does it, like, risk management's a delivery thing, right? I don't care if a product guy, like, it doesn't matter as long as someone does it. But here's what's important. Everyone knows who has the card. It's explicit. We have these very hard discussions up front, and it's clear who has the card, who will be held accountable for what. Does that make sense? Now, the second thing we had to do, again, even though we just divided the responsibilities according to our whims and desires, right, that didn't give us the capability yet. And so we really invest in growing people to be agile. Remember that? Be agile versus do agile, right? So what we have followed is the IC Agile Learning Roadmap. And here's how we've done this. Basically, remember, again, snowflakes. People have different capabilities. So it's not like, all right, every delivery lead, you have to go through this. No, you may already be strong in this area or weak in this area, and it's a matter of compensation. But what we found was there's a lot of great learning objectives for a delivery lead in our coaching track, in our delivery management track, and then engineering track, right? If they work with an engineering team. For team captain, coaching is a critical skill, right? Delivery management and value management, et cetera, right? Now, here's something to keep in mind. One of the reasons we separated the team captain from the product lead, right, is because we practically found that we have great people that know the audience and know the players extremely well, but couldn't lead a team. And we have to start understanding that leading a team is an art in and of itself. It's a craft. Leading, becoming a great leader, creating psychological safety like Josh talked about, right? So if you look back at the responsibilities, one of them is creating psychological safety. Who do you think has that one? Team captain. That is an art. So when we had these sort of combined before, we were looking for unicorns. We were looking for people that could create great psychological safety and enable a team and create a vision and yet know the market and the product and be able to create hypotheses and experiments like Jeff was talking about. Like, where do I find these people? We got one in the audience. All right. So anyway, to wrap up, this is our experiment. It's been 1.5 years in deployment, and we're still learning. The results so far have been pretty encouraging. We've had teams that ran the exercise, and after running the exercise, they looked at their team captain, And they said, you are no longer our team captain. And the team captain said, you're right. And we've had exercises where it didn't go that smooth, but the outcome was the same. They debated. Like, dude, you actually have 3 hats on, but you're doing 5 of these responsibilities. There's people that have hats on and aren't even aware that they have the hats on. So, anyway, that's our story. I hope it provided some insight into, what can I say, the re-level of operating an Agile organization. Don't feel bound by whatever's out there. Create something that works for you. Try it out, experiment. Like, there's tons of bugs in this, but we're learning and we're tweaking. But I believe that's true agility. Agility is to understand the mindset, the core values and principles, and then go out and look at your situation, understand your values, and create something that works for you. Thank you.